Good to go.
To the cloud.
To the cloud.
All right. How are we doing today? Doing?
Last day of class this week.
Yeah, so it's like Friday.
Oh gosh, I got a headache and that light is very bright. We got through the first half of the special test, correct? We were practicing, so we went through the first Bowditch Barrett's 3 Lockmans. So let's flip that page over. First, I want you to do a Lockmans. You can't do too many of those. Can you? No, we can't. We can't do too many. So start with the Lockmans, and then we'll switch to the second half of that list. Let's see the Lockmans, and then I'll demonstrate each one of those second half to refresh your memory, because some of you are looking a little lost. That's okay. It's mostly new. I did the other one out. Lockmans, let's see it. 20 degrees of flexion. Need to be relaxed. Grab that proximal tibia. Nick, go ahead and grab that tibia. You can grab the whole thing on his leg. There you go. Bilateral comparisons.
Waiting for your reaction.
There's your patient. May I? Pulling that heart switch.
Yeah.
For you. Let's see it. Here. Excuse me. Feel that soft tissue movement. Your top hand is penetrating through the quads. Your bottom hand is penetrating through the gastroc. Go ahead and take up that slack. Push down hard enough on the quad that you're getting nice firm. Pull up enough on the gastroc that you've moved through that. Then apply the force to the joint. Otherwise, you're getting a whole lot of soft tissue movement. All right. We'll have plenty of time to try this. So posterior drawer, put them in the same position we had for anterior drawer. I need somebody on the table. Somebody on the anybody. You got to be able to lie down. You got too much crap. So same position we had them for anterior drawer. Knee bent to 90 degrees. For stabilizing the foot, though, we're not too worried about it moving. Fingers in the popliteal fossa. You can feel the hamstring tendons. Make sure they're relaxed. Thumbs on the tibial tuberosity. Now we're pushing straight back. Looking for a posterior shift of the tibia relative to the femur. This is the same position we put them in for what test? And sag. So what happens if I put him in this position? He's got a posterior capsule PCL tear. it's going to slide back. So now when I do my posterior drawer, it's already back. I don't get the shift. I might get the pain, but I don't get the shift. And when I do the anterior drawer, I get this shift. It's not the ACL. Remember that. It's a false positive. So Slocum drawer, keep them right here in this position, but now we're going to rotate the foot. When I internally rotate the foot, I'm stretching the posterior lateral capsule. When I externally rotate, posterior medial capsule. Same motion as anterior drawer, same hand placement. The only difference is the position of the foot. So this gives me posterior lateral, posterior medial. To get anterior lateral medial, everybody stand up. Now you're going to stand on that one foot, cross, in front. That's anterior lateral. Cross behind, that's anterior medial. Okay. Yeah. I have to stand up and do it. Oh, yeah, I feel that medial side. I feel that lateral, just to remind you. That's okay. But that will give you those two. Let me grab. I'm going to introduce you to two more. They're not on the list. There's another ACL test. I need somebody to lie down. You're going to see the lever sign. It's got another name to it. I can't remember it right now. Okay. Put fist under here, push down, and if the foot moves, it's intact. If it isn't, it's essentially doing an anterior force of the tibia relative to the femur. So if the ACL is torn, the foot doesn't move. Lever sign. And then I discovered this one just the other day. There's another meniscus test. Thesali? Thesali test.
Wesley?
Thesali?
Wesley's.
Thesali. You do about a 20-degree squat and then rotate.
Really piss off that
Yeah. So we're, once again, we'll cover McMurray's here in a minute. That doesn't feel good, and I don't have a meniscal tear. All right, so we've got another rotary instability called the pivot shift. This is an anterior lateral rotary instability. Internally rotate the tibia, apply a valgus stress to the knee. That causes the tibia, anterior lateral, to be this corner, to sublux. So internal rotation, a valgus force, you then come up and right around 45 degrees, it reduces, it pivots and shifts back into place. So it subluxes an extension, it reduces inflection. You maintain that internal rotation, you maintain the valgus force the whole time. Okay? Yeah. McMurray's. So you'll see people doing all sorts of stuff. And it's probably going to work because all you're trying to do is get that torn piece of the meniscus to pop out of place and get in the way of the joint, and you'll feel a click or a pop or it might lock. I like to be a little systematic about it so I can take a good educated guess of where that tear might be. When you're towards extension, you're getting more anterior horn, whether it's medial or lateral. When you're towards flexion, you're getting more posterior horn. I like to bring them away from the midline. So now I'm really closing down the medial side, opening up the lateral side. So I'm focusing on the medial meniscus when I have them in this position. I like to take them across the midline. So I'm compressing the lateral side, opening up the medial, so I'm focusing more on the lateral meniscus. Because sometimes you'll feel the pop, get your fingers right there on that joint space. Sometimes you'll feel it, sometimes you don't because it's not right there. This is just anterior, medial, and lateral horn that I can feel. So I'll start them out here. I'm working on the medial one. I go through flexion, extension. Okay, internally rotate the tibia, externally rotate the tibia. I go through that motion 2 or 3 times. Going from, I'm not going into full extension. You don't want to drop out into full extension. And then I'll come over and I'll do the lateral side. I internally rotate the tibia. I externally rotate the tibia. Bring them through flexion, extension, through this arc 2 or 3 times with your fingers up on top. Okay? That way, when you're working on the medial one, if you feel a pop on the medial side, yeah, it's a medial. You'll see people doing a whole lot of circumduction. Well, where's that pop? You got to stop, you got to go back and try to recreate it. If you're not really paying attention to where you're at, then you still don't quite know. Okay? So that's McMurray's. Apley's compression, lay on your stomach, please. You look in a lot of textbooks, Apley's compression is just going to have you push down like this and rotate. So that's pushing equally on medial and lateral. I like to exaggerate so that I can isolate one versus the other. Bring it across the midline. Which one am I putting more pressure on? Medial. Bring it away from the midline, more pressure on the lateral. If you just stay in this static position, you're pushing the whole structure, you're not getting anterior horn, posterior horn. So I like to do a short arc of a little bit of flexion extension here. Towards extension is more of the anterior or posterior. Anterior horn, towards flexion is more posterior horn. So away from the midline, I'm pushing down and I'm going through this arc. Posterior horn lateral, anterior horn lateral. Over the midline, anterior horn medial, posterior horn medial. Make sure your hands are working together here. It's not a pepper shaker. You don't want to cause abrasions and whatnot. So these hands, this one's really pushing down. They're rotating in the same direction. We don't want to counter rotate. Okay? Distraction, simple. Push down on the femur, pull up on the tibia. If they have a meniscal tear, that relieves pain and pressure. If they have a collateral or capsule sprain, that increases pain because you're stretching that structure. Push down, lift up. On your back, please, for the last 2. For the sweep test, we're trying to create a fluid wave. You see these little pockets here. What I'm trying to do is push the swelling away from one side, and it doesn't matter which side you use. Just use the back of your hand to kind of milk it, push it away, and then quickly sweep it, and you look to see that fluid wave pop back into that space. I could go down the lateral side, and then quickly come down the medial to see that pocket come back. So you're just looking for that little bit of a fluid wave. That tells you there's a joint effusion. Palatable patella. We're going to milk it all up underneath. We're not trying to collect all the skin. If you end up like this, you're just collecting skin. I'm trying to collect all the joint capsule right along the joint line. I want to hold it here with these fingers and then tap on the patella. If there's a joint effusion, the patella is going to float up on top of it and it's going to bounce. Whereas without an effusion, it's solid because it's sitting bone on bone. All right? You're going to see a joint effusion. It gets big and puffy. You're going to measure it with a tape measure. You're going to see a difference. These 2 tests help confirm that. Okay? So sweep, palatable. All right? Let's give these a try. Start with pivot shift. Oh, no. Slow for posterior drawer? Yeah, posterior drawer. No, the page doesn't match the slides. Posterior drawer. Start with posterior drawer. You got to lie down, so you need to use a different table.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and stabilize the foot like you do with the anterior door. Halloween socks, huh?
Yes.
You got rumor.
It's spooky
A
season.
little early.
It's spooky season.
People are already listening to Christmas music. What do you mean a little early?
They were already doing our Thanksgiving stuff.
Friends and put everything up first. I get ready.
Oh, right. You gonna do anything good for fall break? I know what football's doing, but.
6 got free.
Community? We're gonna go to Eureka.
Slocum. You said it was
Clean up the Pacific part of it. Right?
That's stuck up the side of the road.
people should.
Yeah.
People.
It's
Say it.
like in Arizona. We ran the Auburn Trail to go camp and saw a bridge. It was out in front of our car. So I would assume that something will happen. It's kind of. He'll hopefully it passed, but well, it's down in the back.
You
I prefer.
give August stress like this.
And in the heat, oh yeah, you can always like add more layers of overhead, but you cannot get to
I did 3 summers of
oh
Mandarin lizards and scallops.
yeah.
You come all the way like as far as
Around 45 degrees is where it's gonna be. So keep that in, grab the bottom of the foot. That.
토인
How can you-
LCL 토인 LCL ACL LCL I keep in quadriceps tendon postural complex.
So did Jack go back to school today?
Yep.
Feeling better?
Got tired of hanging out with Dad.
What was he designing yesterday? A holder for his Nintendo Switch?
He had to go in the car,
That's cool.
hang on the back of the.
Yeah. You guys have access to a 3D printer?
No.
So that's just all imaginative.
Have a place online where you can send them the file.
You can go to the library. You can go to the library.
How big?
Well,
This is gonna be 11 inches.
Eric printed that doorstop for Karen, that's like this big.
Marty.
Yeah, but maybe it has great capabilities.
It's gotta have a pretty good sized plate to get 11 inches.
I have no idea how to do
There's
Never
a
actually
plate
seen
that defines, there's a plate that defines the 2 dimensions, and then there's the height, third dimension. As long as that your design fits within those, then it just lays down layer by layer, goes back and forth. Eventually, you have your little object.
No, Eric. Make it a deal.
Correction? Moving lateral, push to extension. Push it down, rotate. Make sure those hands work together. Grab the bottom of his foot.
Yeah, just more control.
Now you can really control that internal and external tibia. Next arm.
no matter how big the patient is, you have better control of their movement, right? It's easy on her, you can make it work, but
Yeah.
yeah, if it's somebody fairly large or they have a really long leg. Especially like, I think, yeah, big, bulky, like a football player would be hard, but like even if you got like a basketball player who's real tall and the limb is real long, I think that's even harder, even if they're skinny. Because often they don't have a good joint sense and they're just kind of crazy. They're like just flopped around.
You get a really big, heavy leg.
Yeah.
And it gets hard to bring them out towards extensions. You can do the whole thing up here. Keep their femur at 90. You can do your flexion extension. You do it in this, assuming they have hamstring flexibility. They may not. Then you're limited on that.
Takes away the hip flexion.
So we're doing an arc. A little bit of extension, a little bit of flexion.
Doesn't matter.
Over the lateral side, over the medial side.
Okay. Just not one direction.
Correct. I'm going to do it like this.
I don't think it matters. You're essentially moving the fluid, so however
With that
you
movement.
can.
So anterior horn,
Posterior.
posterior horn,
And you're gonna
medial,
go that way, either way. You're just
and lateral out there.
You're not doing like that. In one direction. There's no, you don't have to be consistent with the sweep, right? Just
Push it away from one side, push it back. So, subjects with learning disabilities. So some research has gone through Lindsay's data, the whole idea of the scan business. And they found that something like 70% diagnosed
Foot over.
Ritalin or
Yeah.
kind of ADHD.
which is a much larger study. So then they started looking at these were subjects. I don't know what the connection was for them to start looking at research. Over the subjects in a lot of these studies. The study did prevention that that's certainly a factor to show consideration. Because that's bad enough. One of his grads was her thesis.
Posterior.
Posterior.
Posterior drawer. 6 and
Last 5 years. So, wow, you learn.
Good. There's an article about it. The Athletic. And then when I looked this morning, I found another article. So now my guess is that the journals take a look, decide.
A lot of stuff.
Journal says we're going to be tracking this. I think with all the people that have cited
small column.
analysis, cited
Twin. Letter.
I
12.
think the original people that I sent this to my friend, how is it?
So what it would do, it was not necessarily a,
통화 오지 MC.
I mean,
I think it was, I
it
hope it
was
was.
out of that academic resource.
음.
Yeah, right, so it's coming out of the academic resource center, because that's usually where that all stems, it's like, as it says, hey, I'm struggling. I'll say, hey, here are some resources, go get
Did
tested.
he collect health history?
이디언.
Right.
That should have included this. Or did he not? He said it.
이디언. 이디언. 아니 스트레스 좋아.
Well, you gotta, yeah, you have to wait to have a decision.
The peer review process. But if he got some more from the others.
So this is the conversation you guys had.
Yeah.
인사이드. 인터로테이션.
I'm thinking less about his stuff and more about why
인터로테이션.
70 football players. Yeah, but imagine that they probably have 100 kids on that. So think about 70 kids. And those papers, I'm sure you can see everything. The university is getting because that like a lot, I think more state gen med is covered, right? Just ones that in your state are really not like the only thing that was like this, if it was actually related to the sport, like it was.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you apply the jobs more so
Efficient,
fully,
or-
I feel like I'm just like, I feel like probably some more. Yeah.
정서. 병영.
And what is their test for grades? UNC is a rather demanding school academically. You know, at the start of the population, it's a low reading level. So is it a legitimate?
Why not their focus diagnosis?
It's
I could see that population being slightly above the norm.
Sure.
Not that much.
slightly above the norm in the fact that they have more resources and
More resources, more like
more awareness,
diagnosis.
more interaction. Exactly.
And everything. So they overlook themselves. But I had never.
Destruction. Destruction.
At the end, unless you have a prescription.
훨씬 많이 기울기나 보시죠. 한번은
That's happening everywhere. Every coach is saying, oh, your shirt is just classy. As an athlete and
스위치.
Beaver side.
or Mr. Lutley. The white Chloe.
It's out of Italy. He published his own article on reliability of 100%. Of course. Exactly.
All of these.
Not cars, modified vision.
Golden white. You were young when you invented it.
I was young when I invented it,
Okay.
but you're right.
Yay.
It's so true. It's so true.
Especially when I'm tired of
What did you say?
especially when we hired this young company. It's just amazing before obvious. And we got rid of Garrett, the old guy.
The oldest.
Really?
The oldest guy.
How we doing?
Internalizing all of it.
Yeah. Need some time to reflect. Let it
Lots of
marinate
time,
in the
yeah.
juices.
Especially, well, with an ACL, that their quad is done. Doesn't want you to do it.
It's a bunch of tests. Okay, but boil it down to what are we testing? We've got a couple. We've got MCL, LCL. We've got 1, 2, 3 for the PCL, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the ACL and rotary, 2 for the meniscus, 2 for effusion. Think of the anatomy. I mean, MCL, LCL, ACL, PCL. So those are the 4 primary ligaments you got to stress. ACL is always pretty much associated with rotary instabilities. So those can all be grouped into that. Then we got meniscus. We got to test the meniscus. Then we have a couple tests for effusion. So this is where it really becomes. You don't do every test. You do what's indicated. From your history, you've got this mechanism that suggests a rotation. I planted my foot, I turned, my foot didn't move. So it suggests this rotation. Your palpation says that they're tender on the medial side, in the medial joint line. Well, do we have to do all PCL tests? Do we have to do all of the effusion tests? Do we have to do all of the rotary instability tests? No. We're going to pick the ones that we're most comfortable with. I don't do the pitch. I'm just not comfortable. I do Lockman's. Okay, I might do crossover. If it's anterior pain, if it's posterior pain, I do Slocum Jordan. I don't do anterior work, right? Because it's not that great. Sagsine, Gottfried's, you don't have to do both of those for the PCL. Right? So you got to start thinking critically about here's this long list, but not all of them are indicated. So I'm certainly not on this patient going to do all of them. One thing to consider when you're doing valgus and varus, let's say they report medial pain and you're doing your varus stress test, you put pressure right on the MCL to do your varus stress. And they say, ow, that hurts. No shit. You're pushing on the tender ligament. What do? You want to do a varus, it's going to cause pain, just push on it. Got to try to modify it somehow. And I've seen people get the leg up under their arm, holding the proximal tibia, start doing valgus and varus, just tweaking the leg back and forth without applying direct pressure to the knee. That could work. You can clarify where is your pain. Is it where I'm pushing, or is it out here on the outside, or vice versa? You're trying to do an MCL and they have an LCL. Clarify where that pain is. Move your pressure point. You can try moving up a little more proximal, up on the femur. Just use that lever arm of down at the ankle to get a valgus or a varus instead of pushing right at the joint. So you may have to modify some things. I'm a big fan of Lockman's, McMurray's. Goggins and bears you got to be good at, because you're going to get a lot of MCL sprains. You'll get more MCL than LCL. Posterior drawer. This is just my own best hits. McMurray's. Pretty much covers it. You're probably, if you're going to get a positive on McMurray's, you'll get a positive on Apley's compression, or vice versa. So you're going to develop ones that you're comfortable with, you're good at. Hone those skills. You need to know what the other ones are, how they're done. You follow me? I think Kelly does. All right. Come on. So once we get through our special tests, we're on to neurovascular. We've got a couple of dermatomes to deal with. And these go at an angle, sloping from high on the outside to low on the inside. L2 is anterior thigh, right through the middle there. L3 is just above the knee. L4 is the medial lower leg, and as we already saw, the foot. Saw that when we were on ankle and foot. Medial lower leg and foot. S2, popliteal fossa, posterior thigh. Think gastroc up to hamstring for S2. L2, L3, L4, S2. Is L5 on your list? Yeah. Lateral knee. I'm not sure why it's not here. L5, lateral knee. Cutaneous branches. Lateral femoral cutaneous, lateral thigh. Intermediate femoral cutaneous, anterior. Ilioinguinal obturator, medial. Just for posterior femoral. Posterior thigh. Sure is. Why they didn't call it anterior, I do not know. So lateral femoral, intermediate femoral, ilioinguinal obturator, posterior femoral. Myotomes, we got two of them. L2, L3 is quad extension. You have them sitting on the end of a table, extend their knee. Don't let me push it down. Bilateral comparison. L5, S1 is hamstring flexion. So have them bend their knee. Don't let me straighten it. Contract the quads, contract the hamstring. We got the patellar tendon reflex, probably the most common. You should be familiar with it at this point in your life. Some doctor at some point just slapped your knee. Make sure you get between the inferior pole and the tibial tuberosity so you're actually hitting tendon. Otherwise, you probably won't get much of a reaction. Yeah. Don't sit right in front of them where they're going to kick you in the nuts. Laugh. It's happening. All right. So patellar tendon reflex, and then vascular popliteal artery. Palpate into the back of the knee. Make sure you're not trying to check popliteal artery with the knee in full extension. You will not get there. You got to have it in some flexion so that the tissue is relaxed and you can penetrate into the back of the fossa. Okay? Preguntas? Shaking your head yes. Preguntas means questions.
Sorry.
So you got questions?
No,
Then go.
we need to speak English.
Un poquito español?
That's okay, but I don't know.
Culturally competent around here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Anybody here aspire to work with professional baseball? No? All right, then never mind.
Wouldn't be opposed.
Wouldn't be opposed?
Start learning Spanish at once.
Third of their population is native Spanish speaking,
Just a third.
depending upon the team. But about a third. Be prepared to live out of a bus. With minor league, they play 60-odd games in 60-odd days.
Oh, that sounds great. My favorite.
There's a lot of games in a short amount of time in towns you've never heard of, depending upon the league. That's rough. Or you could end up in the Dominican League and just spend all your time in the Dominican Republic.
What alumni do we have that's?
Sounds exotic, doesn't it?
Is he in the Dominican? Where
I
is he?
think he is. He's in the Dominican or Mexican. Jeff
Somewhere
Case.
central.
Yeah. I've had several students go that route. I've had students make it to the big leagues. One of them was the head for the Cleveland Indians and lives out of the suitcase. Never home. They're home, they're at the ballpark. Because baseball teams show up 3 hours in advance and they're there for an hour after the game. It's just ridiculous. And granted, they travel on charter jets and they stay in 5-star hotels. Think how long that season is. 162 games
Plus
from.
more because playoffs.
And when do they start the season? I mean, spring
Well, I would
starts.
say
Spring training starts in February. Season starts in what, March, April? No.
Most seasons.
I'm not trying to dissuade you from doing it. I want you to have a realistic picture of what it is. Those minor league people, you only move up if somebody retires or dies.
I've got a friend who's in the minors. And she lives in a new city every season. So they'll send her to, she's based out of Arizona with the Diamondbacks, but they'll send her to a minor league team for the season. And they pay her rent to keep her apartment in Arizona, but she's been in for 3 years. She lived in Oregon, she lived in Montana, and then last season she was in Illinois.
You could really travel, I guess.
You will definitely see the country. Yeah. The parts of it you never knew existed. It's not bad. I just, and that student with the Cleveland Indians, he has a family. So he's moved out of that role. He's no longer on the field. He's moved into a director role. Never home. You think college athletics is that?
You make it to Double-A in the Texas League. At least you go to all major cities. For the most part.
Yeah. Professional sports, I think NFL is probably the place to be because they travel the day before, they come right back that night. You're home most of the
games.
You're home most of the time.
Shortest season.
Yeah, shorter season. How many games do they play in the NBA?
82 plus the playoffs.
That's the deal. Long slog out of a hotel room too.
That one's like October to June now. They stretch it out so long now that the playoffs are
Hockey,
You got a sports scientist.
It's another 82, I think.
80-odd games. In hockey locker rooms. sweat.
Man, those guys don't wash their shit. They don't wash their pads and
Man.
stuff.
They fight all the time, so most of the injuries you treat are because they were being idiots, not because they actually were playing their sport. That would make me so mad. Well, but
I mean, it's a fun sport, don't get me wrong. It just,
I like to watch it, but I'm so mad at it.
hygiene is not at the top of their list.
That's why they have like one guy that designated, like, it's true every 2 months.
An enforcer.
Good at
Yeah.
stitching.
You're like, you're actually not good at hockey, but you're pretty decent.
Yeah, they all have to have designated suture rooms
Yeah.
in the arenas. Even this minor league crap we got going on over here, they have a designated room for suturing.
The hockey team, the club team.
They have 2 club teams though.
Yeah, they have an A and a C or a B.
So do they have trainers there?
We did. Did we find a replacement?
Oh, I don't know if they put somebody there. It was a GA last year.
It was a GA that started this year that left
Oh, yeah, right.
through
So
varsity.
no, I don't think
they
they know what they're gonna do. I think they're somebody temporary.
Before that, I used to cook. Got paid my mad money. Never saw the bank account. Nope, sorry. All right. So let's practice the whole thing. We've got all the steps. Let's go back. I'm not too worried about your history assessment at this point. Let's go back to the start of the assessment. Start with palpation, inspection, palpation, and work our way through the tests, neurovascular.
The medium one of the first ones usually go when atrophy happens.
Yes. That one, just following the organization. Or chronic injury.